Welcome to Let Me Know How It Is, a pop culture podcast about TV, movies, comics, and all things geek. To celebrate his 80th anniversary, we're talking all things Captain America. I'm Zach Slater.
I'm Frank Melman.
This is Tommy Smithereens.
And I'm Clifton.
And also fittingly, we're recording this on the 4th of July, actually, so you might hear some fireworks in the background from time to time. We're just letting you guys know because there's probably not much we could do about that.
No.
So
it's extra festive.
Exactly. Yeah, it works. We'll begin where it all started. Created by Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, Captain America debuted to the world in 1941 with Captain America #1, boasting the now iconic image of Cap punching out Adolf Hitler splashed along the cover. So, Clifton, I know that you checked this out recently, so I'll turn it over to you.
I did. And like dwelling on that cover a bit, it is worth doing because that cover, now iconic, was quite a political statement at the time this issue came out. Because just a little bit of context going on at the time. This came out in early 1941. America was not in the war yet.
Right.
It was heavily debated at that point in time in American politics whether or not America should even ever be in the war. Like, that was not a settled question by any means. And to, on the cover, just show something as flagrant as a symbol of America in red, white, and blue and stars and stripes, just punching Hitler. Like, It was a daring, bold political statement.
Sure.
And some of it is in reaction to a lot of what was going on in America at the time, because just down the street, like in 1941, literally down the street from what would have been the Timely headquarters office up in Times Square, you have like America First rallies going on in Madison Square Garden, where Charles Lindbergh has crowds of, capacity crowds, tens of thousands of people for what started as anti-war rallies and then slowly turned into very pro-Nazi, anti-Semitic rallies. So I mean, that was happening right down the street from these guys who were making these comics.
Yeah.
So that's happening in their neighborhood. So, I mean, a lot of it was very reactionary to what they were seeing. And I think it is worth seeing that because that right from the start of Captain America has been ingrained politics.
Sure.
In a lot of his stories, which I think is worth pointing out there.
So Cap #1 is what, March 1941 is the cover?
That's correct, yeah.
Right? March 19, yeah. So, Pearl Harbor isn't until December of that same year.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we're not in the war yet.
No. Yep. And like all those America First rallies, which was Charles Lindbergh's America's First Committee, which was sort of political party at the time. Like their rallies were going strong in New York until Pearl Harbor. Their support dried up very soon after that.
Yeah.
Right.
And our course was set on entering the war. But prior to that, Marvel, they didn't have Captain America fighting so much in the war in the stories, just the cover, but in the stories, which we'll get into in this issue, his early stories were mostly fighting Nazi spies and saboteurs in America on American soil. They used other characters to actually fight Nazis in Europe, like Namor is one that they used a lot when they wanted to tell those stories. But yeah, in Captain America #1, it's a packed first issue because we get the first appearance of Steve Rogers, Captain America. We also get the first appearance of Bucky and the first appearance of the Red Skull.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so they're all in separate stories. It's a jam-packed issue with a bunch of different short stories, but they're all there from the beginning. Bucky, like we all know, Bucky's a little different than we know him now. He was a young kid, which was something they did change later, and we'll get into some more later on in the show for MCU. But he's presented as like a mascot for the regiment. He's
like 15 or something, right?
Like, I mean, and he looks like a young 15, if that. Like, he's a tiny guy, which I assume the popularity of Robin, who had been introduced the previous year, in the Batman comics, because that was 1940, right? Introduction of Robin. So I assume that's where they were kind of like, oh, we can give Captain America a young squire of sorts. Fighting Nazi spies. It's a little different, but yeah.
Who later parachutes into Germany with like like a Tommy gun.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brubaker completely changes the idea of like, hey, basically it's, Cap, you're the symbol, you're the one that's up front leading the charge, making the country
Right.
look good. Meanwhile, I'm gunning down Nazis and no one's really paying attention to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In the same imagery would be Robin just killing thugs in Gotham while Batman's throwing batarangs and smoke bombs.
Right.
If that were the same thing that Robin was doing, but of course,
Right.
he wasn't. They were too busy jumping around on giant typewriters.
Well,
Yeah.
Cap's got the shield. He's providing cover.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got the target. Everyone's aiming for that shield.
Right.
So, okay, so what in this first issue, like what of what we expect, what we know about Captain America is there right from the start?
I mean, the origin is solid as we still know it. Like it is all still there. I mean, scrawny kid who got rejected, but wants to serve his country. Clandestine experiment to create a super soldier that gets sabotaged after the first successful case. Like it's all like everything we do see and still know is straight out of this first appearance as far as Steve Rogers goes. The differences go a little bit with Bucky, but yeah, I was surprised how much of it's still faithful and accurate. They introduce a character early on in the first issue. Her name is X-13. Also goes by Betsy Ross or Betty Ross. Sometimes that changed over the comics as like a secret agent that would work, like a young woman secret agent that would work with Captain America a lot. That kind of got morphed over the years where Peggy Carter fills that role. But that character was there in the early appearances and was around in the comics for a little while after that. And then the other big change is Red Skull. Like there are Red Skull differences that kind of got retconned later. So this was the first appearance of the Red Skull, but it's not Johann Schmidt.
Okay.
It's a character in this version. It's a character named George Maxson, who's wearing like the mask of the Red Skull, so not actually a Red Skull. And for the first couple appearances, that's who it is. It's later through stories retconned that he was just working for the real Red Skull before the real Red Skull came along, but that his job was basically as a Nazi spy in America to pose as the Red Skull.
So is that the way they get around the idea of him being like a prototype, like villain, as opposed like with Luthor, where Luthor was like a red-haired villain at first, and then
and then you get a more defined version that's lasted since then. That's how they do it on Red Skull.
Okay,
like this previous version was just one of his lackeys, and we didn't know the real one yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it's sold that way. We know as a reader, we know full well it's not the real one.
Not in this issue. In this issue, we don't.
Okay.
That's retconned after the fact.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And he's a Nazi at this point, or Hydra's not a thing.
Hydra's not a thing yet. No. Hydra in the comics doesn't come around until the 60s.
Okay.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure with the inclusion with the modern shield. When I say modern, I mean Nick Fury.
the Steranko shield.
The Steranko shield, which again, not really modern, but I mean more the idea of inventing shield for modern quote unquote times, I guess.
Modern is in very mod. It's very mod chic.
Right, well, sure. Well, I mean, but I guess I'll say it this way. When you find out that there was a shield that existed, when Hickman starts playing with the idea, there might have been a shield long before.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like in the Renaissance and stuff.
Right. Yeah. That one. Or like when you find they fought off Galactus and an alien brood horde at one point, long before the shield was ever a thing. Right. That group. But
are we still waiting for that last issue of that Shield comic? Like 15 years after the fact?
Yes, it is. It's still, it'll come sometime.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure he's still working on it. Quick sidebar there.
Yeah, sorry.
Back to this Red Skull. This Red Skull was a Nazi. He was very, very much a Nazi.
Okay.
Like he's kind of terrifying looking in his first appearance. It's just like a red skull with like little eyes, and he's wearing a helmet just covered in swastikas. He's just decked out in them.
Wow.
Right? And strangles people. He strangles a lot of people in this issue, and has like a checklist. So after he strangles people, he checks off his list. He was menacing.
For kids.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it's kind of cool, though, that it sounds like so much of what we know and love about Cap is right there, right from the start.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I thought about as I was planning for this episode is how much just things like the costume. The costume has changed relatively little.
Yeah. Not
in
a
80
lot.
years, as far as, you can't say the same for Flash and, Green Lantern and stuff like that. Those are actually like different characters in there, but the visual is completely different at this point. Cap is, pretty, it's less a helmet so much and more of a cowl later on and stuff like that until the movies.
Right.
But yeah, it seems like, it's kind of neat that I think he changes so little.
Yeah.
We can get into why I think, or why we think later on if you guys want. But so any other observations about issue 1? Anything that surprised you at the time? Like, oh, wow, like that's early.
No, the one thing, like the lack of reasoning for Bucky joining up is kind of jarring, because we're now used to like a well thought out, well established Bucky, but in the Golden Age, not everything needed a real believable explanation.
Yeah.
And Bucky's was that he was like the kid mascot for this platoon that Private Steve Rogers, because his secret identity was a private in the army, as opposed to Captain America. So he was Private Steve Rogers as the secret identity. And Bucky, his little friend who hangs out with the platoon, like walks in and sees him putting on the Captain America outfit. And honestly, like, that's it. They're just like, yep, like, you're Bucky now. Like, you're going to help me out in this.
Right.
Like, we're going to share this secret together.
Right. He's not trying to put this orphan on the front line to bump him off so he can save his secret, right? That's not something horrifying.
No, not that we know of. Because so far they're only hanging out in New York, like fighting spies and stuff. But yeah, he does take him around and endanger this child.
Jeez.
So that was one thing I noticed that did not hold up over the years and was more refined to the Bucky we know from MCU.
And there's nothing in the issue about Bucky lying about his age to get in the army, anything like that?
Not in this one that I know.
Okay.
I don't know exactly. Like, it's kind of vague if he's actually, like, it's not clear if he's actually in the military or if he's just like a kid that hangs out there.
Right.
But then he does have a uniform later, so.
Okay. Because I thought way early on, like in the Golden Age, it's definitely played as the idea of just he's kind of a kid that hangs around,
right,
and kind of a gopher for the guys. And then once he finds out Steve, like you said, once he finds out Steve's secret,
right,
he's full on going on missions and wearing a domino mask.
Yeah, that might have been something they added pretty soon after, like the Red Skull stuff they retcon later. They might have added that along the way.
Gotcha.
So. Really quick note from our engineer. Hydra first appearance, 1965, Strange Tales, number 135.
Okay.
So you're right. It was the 60s when they came out. Worth pointing out. So Cap number 1. So the company at this point is Timely.
That's correct.
Yeah, correct. They're Timely at this point. Okay.
Yep.
Any idea? Could you walk us through like how long did Cap run before the Frozen storyline? Do we know?
That I don't have the numbers on. I know he was popular throughout the war, prior to the war, and then through the war. And then in 1946, they saw some of their solo heroes books kind of fading a little bit in popularity in the post-war time. And that's when they introduced one of their first superhero teams, which was the All Winners Squad, where they teamed him up with Namor, with Human Torch, with the Wizard, with Miss America. Yes. I can't remember some of the the other Golden Age heroes, and so I know he went through into the late 40s at least. Okay, so and then he's dug up later in the 60s under Marvel, right?
Correct. In what Avengers number 3? Do I have that right? 3, 4?
4.
Okay,
Avengers number 4. Yeah. And there's some interesting stuff about this. So one, he's not the first Golden Age character that Marvel brought back from Timely's Golden Age. That was Namor in Fantastic Four number 4 the previous year. And then on the Avengers cover that has Captain America's reappearance, Namor's on that cover too, because Namor actually has a little appearance in that issue. But prior, and I only learned this just the other day from our engineer who told me about this, and then I went and looked up and found the issue. In Strange Tales number 114 in November of 1963, which was a Human Torch issue at that time. I think Human Torch was the main character in that book.
Golden Age? Human Torch?
Fantastic Four. Fantastic
Johnny.
Four's Human Torch. Johnny. Yeah.
Okay.
Johnny Storm, Human Torch. So in 1963, it was like Johnny Storm's solo appearances at the time. Like a character shows up who appears to be Captain America and claims to be Captain America wearing the Captain America suit. And everyone's like, oh, look, Captain America's back. Where's he been? And then you find out that it was really just the Acrobat, who was a villain from a previous issue.
Right.
Who had disguised himself as Captain America to create a diversion to rob banks. But the funny thing about that is that at the end of that issue, there's a caption that says, you guessed it, this story was really a test to see if you too would like Captain America to return. As usual, your letters will give us the answer. So I guess they got some letters. I guess people were like, yeah, like we do want Captain America to come back.
Where's he been?
Yeah. Right. So then we got Avengers number 4.
Okay.
Yeah, just a quick look up. It looks like Captain America Comics number 73 from 49 might have been his last appearance.
Okay.
Yeah, looks like that's the last one.
Okay, yeah. It looks like our engineer put in a note too saying last Cap Golden Age cover date was July 1949.
Okay. So that might be, I don't know if it's the same number or not, but yeah, so he would have been gone, what, 13 years at that point? Before this tryout?
Publication-wise.
Yeah, publication-wise, before this tryout.
Right.
I wonder if they did the same thing with Namor, because Namor was just like, nope, found him in a flop house, drop him in the water, and then I've unleashed him on humanity from that point on.
Yep. That's a fun issue.
It's a great issue.
Yeah. But, so there we are. I mean, Captain America pops up then in the Avengers, and we're off to the races.
Yes.
So what was your guys' like first exposure to the character? What was the first? Was it a comic book? Was it somewhere else that you found him? Like, when did you fall in love with this character?
I'm pretty sure. I know there's a crossover with the Hulk because that was a book that I read fairly. Like, it had to be like, I'm talking like mid '80s. But there's a pretty good, I think it's an issue, like it's like one Captain America in one issue, and then it crosses over in the Incredible Hulk. But that was the first place I remember reading him regularly. Like I read that issue, and then I think I went for a pretty good run after that. But no, I mean, I remember seeing him. Like I remember the old, there's a TV show, the one with the really big motorcycle helmet.
The 70s live action show, and
the plexiglass shield.
Yeah.
So, there's that one. I mean,
was that a show or a TV movie?
I think it was a TV movie. I think it was kind of like they wanted it to be a show.
Right.
And then it didn't become a thing. It didn't manifest until because they did a couple of those kind of pilots where it just didn't work out.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that was, I remember that. And then I'm trying to think if it was, is he in the 7 Little Superheroes episode, Clifton? Of Spider-Man's Amazing Friends?
He's in the Pawns of the Kingpin episode for sure.
Oh, is that the one where Bobby tries to get the interview?
I think so.
Okay, so he's in that one. So I know him from that too.
I think he's in several. I think he is in the other one too, though. Because that's what I was going to say. I'm like, I'm sure it's the common refrain for me is I was introduced to all these characters from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, right? Because they always had guests every episode.
Right.
So that's how I learned about anything in the Marvel universe.
What about you, Tommy?
To be honest, didn't really care for him too much. My introduction to him was my brother collected the comics, so every once in a while, whenever there's a Masters of Evil thing going on in Avengers or something, it took my notice. But wasn't until I think X-Men where they had a throwback story of him and Wolverine.
Oh, the cartoon?
No, not the cartoon.
The issue with Black Widow on the cover.
Oh, the Jim Lee cover?
Yeah, the Jim Lee cover. Yeah. But as far as being a strong Cap advocate, I was like, okay.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm with you. My story is pretty similar to yours, Tommy, actually. Like, I mean, I knew peripherally who he was, but my brother had like the Cap, like Secret Wars action figure and stuff like that. So I knew what he looked like. I knew his deal, the shield, all that stuff and everything. But like, I was collecting comics a lot in the 90s and that was big X-Men days for Marvel, as we say from time to time and everything. So Captain America really wasn't like front and center, when you're 11. You know what I mean? And so like I checked him out in that one X-Men animated series episode from the last batch where he, you see him in World War II with Wolverine.
Which is the adaptation of that issue that Tommy's talking about.
I mean, honestly, the moment I started reading Cap and I was like, oh, this guy's like really cool. Like, I'm sorry to say, it's like Ultimates, I think.
Yeah.
Like during that run, which, it's been forever since I've gone back and looked at that stuff. So I don't know how it holds up. But at the time, I remember thinking like, that was the first time I was like, man, I really like this guy. And it's,
right.
Right.
And then from there, peripherally started, that like after the fact, it was like the Brubaker run was coming out and making a lot of waves and things and people getting popular. And then, it's probably a Wizard magazine that had like, a list of good Captain America stories. So I bought like some of the Roger Stern stuff and trade like one of the, like at a show, and I read all that stuff and loved it. Right. I love, like the Baron Zemo stuff and like the Cap running for president, deal from the 70s and 80s and stuff. Yeah. And so, I'm hooked at that point.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I found the issues. It was a crossover between Incredible Hulk 232 and then Captain America 257. And I remember what it was about Hulk 232 that was really cool is the fact that you've got Cap and the Hulk running basically running towards you. And there are bullets bouncing off Cap's shield, and then they're just bullets bouncing off the Hulk. Like it's a pretty cool image. But I mean, the other thing is just like, I read, Cap. I mean, that's what I think of, like where I found like Cap by himself compelling, or at least, teamed up with the Hulk. And I'm like, I'll check out some more issues after that. But I mean, I read a boatload of Avengers appearances, like reprints and other stuff with Captain America. But what's not quite the same as him in his own book.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I think that's. That's I remember that being maybe one of my earliest, like, oh, I think I'll check out Captain America because he's teamed up with the Hulk, as opposed to like, I'm just going to, pick up a random Captain America issue. Mm-hmm. But I remember reading, like, through all the stuff with, when Cap, like when they first introduced Crossbones and then, like that stuff. I remember it was that and like all the stuff, like what we're getting now with the Falcon and Winter Soldier that we recently got on Disney Plus. I read all of the stuff with John Walker,
Okay.
I read I had all those books. I read all those up to a certain point. Like then you said the thing with Brubaker. That's when I got back into it. I started reading that stuff with Brubaker and who's the artist on those for most of those?
Steve Epting for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Just Steve Epting and then Jackson Geist, right? Isn't it? Didn't they switch off, I think, for a little bit? They
might. I think Steve Epting was like flashback artist, I want to feel like, I want to say, for some of the issues.
Right. But I read all that stuff through Civil War and all that.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of great stuff out there. Like I said, like after you start going backwards, I mean, he's had a lot of great stories even over the years. Like I find myself going back into the 70s and stuff, like I'm reading right now still like the Steve Englehart, like Secret Empire stuff. Mm-hmm. Not to be confused with the Nick Spencer Secret Invasion. God, I keep saying Secret Invasion. Secret Empire event from probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And that stuff's really, really cool too, and
have you read the Byrne stuff with like Baron Blood and all that? And Mr. Hyde, I think it's Mr. Hyde and Cobra.
I think so.
One issue ends with him like Cap's chained to the front of a ship.
Okay.
It's great. I mean, it's like it's one with Hyde and Cobra, and then the other one is like I said with Baron Blood. It's like I think it's if I remember correctly, it either ends with or starts with the new Union Jack.
Okay. Love Union Jack.
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought it up. I'm like, if you haven't read those are really good too.
No, I think that stuff was in the trade for the Roger Stern stuff that I was reading. Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking too. But yeah,
that stuff was super fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good stuff.
In the Steve Englehart secret, I'm saying the Secret War now. There's too many secret things in Marvel.
Secret Defenders, Clifton.
in the Steve Englehart Secret Empire one, that's another one where they started dabbling Captain America back into politics. Yeah. And that was kind of a response to Watergate era politics of the time of like, what's like, our government's not what it seems. Like our government's not like has other agendas going on that's not in the best interests. And so that was really kind of started revisiting politics with the character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it like I said, I'm reading that stuff now, and it's still like it it fits today. It's very, spreading of misinformation stuff to frame him, and it's I mean, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
And also really cool because Falcon is in there, and of course, like they're chummy and everything like that, and that's a relationship that's really cool. So I mean, like Bucky kind of disappears for a while, and then he's sort of paired up with Falcon for a long time in the books.
Right.
Well, why?
I certainly remember when Kirby comes back on and he's doing, like the Mad Bomb stories and stuff like that. Like Falcon's right there
in the bicentennial run.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not like when you say that Bucky went away for a while. It's kind of, it's one of those things where there was an unwritten rule in Marvel for the longest time that Bucky was gone and never coming back.
Yep.
Bucky and Uncle Ben.
Yeah, Bucky and Uncle Ben were the two that we were never ever going to see brought back at Marvel until they did. So
right.
But yeah, it's funny. I mean, that was the thing that I don't know. I couldn't tell you whether or not the Golden Age ends with that story or whether it's a retcon that they added into Avengers 4. Like, I don't know. Does anyone know? That whole thing of Bucky trying to stop the missile or the plane.
I don't know for sure. I do remember because I heard Brubaker in an interview talk about this, and he had like a couple of funny things, and one was that he was talking to somebody at Marvel at the time later when he was in the comics and writing them at that point, and he was asking why they never brought Bucky back, and the person he was talking to supposedly said Stan Lee was saying, well, we'll wait till the sales dip a little, and then we'll think about doing it, right? So it was kind of like an ace in their sleeve, up their sleeve that they just kind of held on to from the sound of it here. But apparently he was saying like Brubaker wanted to bring Bucky back like since he was a kid. like he was always like, if I ever get a chance to write on Captain America, I'm bringing Bucky back, because it never made sense to him. Like why like everybody comes back, like
right.
And then he does this seminal, whatever it is, 8-year run on the character where look what it spawned. I mean, I can't go to a con without seeing Winter Soldier cosplay somewhere. Right.
It's a great retcon. I mean, it's great.
And a great design. That's some great.
It's a good looking book for the length of time that's on. I remember there was a book that was in between. I think it's John A. Reber. And there was a in between that. It was closer to, it was the last number one before Brubaker's run. And that was the one with John Cassidy's art.
Okay.
That was a little more, that also leaned a lot more into political stuff. Because I'm thinking it's like right after 9/11 that came out, but it didn't last very long. The art was good on that one too. It just wasn't it was also one of those books where it was kind of like, I think the idea in that one is more that Cap was going after terrorists, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah,
but I think it only lasted. I think that art team and the writing team was only on it for like an arc or two, and that was it.
Okay,
but it's another example of
Yeah, and you guys brought up Steranko a little while ago too, like on the S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, and he has a very short stint on the character too.
Right. I
know. I want to say it's like 5 issues or something like that, but it's like it's in one of those Masterworks, trades, because he had it's on the heels of like Kirby sort of like does a retelling of the origin. I want to say like later, like in the 60s and the 70s or something like that. And then Steranko jumps on for a couple of issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he's like, he's gotten good creators. He's one of those characters that's lucky to have a good set of creators on him that always have people adding to it.
Right. Well, it's like I think the last writer on it was Ta-Nehisi Coates. Wasn't he the one that didn't he just wrap up his run on that?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of good creators just recently, sort of like back to back. It was Nick Spencer on a long run, and I remember like Mark Waid had kind of like a quick one. Like Mark Waid might have been on for like a year and a half, and Ta-Nehisi Coates,
right?
Had a decent sized run on there too.
Right. Oh yeah, and then we also had Remender. Remender's run is pretty good because that leads into Sam Wilson's run.
Yeah, Rick Remender's run was where Sam Wilson took up the mantle of Captain America right at the end of his run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Remender's run deals with a lot of the stuff that's like, I think set up by Kirby. in like Kirby's last run, I believe, but I'm not certain because I haven't read all the Kirby stuff.
Right. But yeah, Remender's what set up Sam Wilson, Captain America, and Old Man Steve Rogers.
Right. And it sticks around for a little bit because that's Nick Spencer originally comes on for Sam Wilson Cap. Right. And then he does for a while, there's 2 books. There's a Sam Wilson Captain America title, and then there's a Steve Rogers Captain America title. And that's where he's starting with his secret empire. The cosmic Red Skull gets the cosmic cube. It sort of like rewrites history where Cap is a Hydra agent. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people lost their minds over that one. They were really, really pissed.
Yes, they did.
Well, I mean, the funny thing about it is, like, if you go back, there's like the entire page. If you go back to it, there's a story where the Red Skull does a similar thing to Cap back in the '60s.
Yeah, and
in that one, you have Cap, full on Nazi saluting the Red Skull. It's not. I mean, I understand why people got upset, but at the same time, as you said, it was not like. I don't know why people bit so hard on that one.
Yeah, I don't know why either.
I think it was the timing of the real world timing of when that one came out that people were extra sensitive and extra hesitant to that type of story. I think that's what it was. Not the story itself, but
thing that every time I hear something in comics, I'm like it's not permanent. We know it's like just for a story for, I always think like whenever there's a big seismic change like that, like the cynic in me is like 2 years.
Sure.
I'm like, that's the longest it'll be. 2 years.
How long was Superman dead?
Because that's about how long a typical run is, right? Before another writer jumps on. And, sometimes stuff sticks but a lot of times people, put their toys away so somebody else can come along and play with them. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I found the outrage a little odd too for that. But what's interesting to me though, and maybe this has to do with how enduring the character is, I don't know, but it's like he for all the retellings of his origin, he's never been updated. Ever. His origin's always World War II, and they just sort of like
they slide scale.
Yeah, they slide the scale of years that he's been frozen with, like in the 60s,
which works beautifully well. It's beautifully simple.
In the 60s, when he comes back, he's only frozen 20 years.
Right.
Now he's frozen like 80 years.
Right.
Right. Like it's like people comment that he doesn't look like he's aged, but you could be like, yeah, like he just ages well for that 20 years.
Right.
When he comes back in the 60s. But now you're like, wait a second, something fishy's going on.
Right.
And yeah, they always, like, there is always the story, which now we're actually running out of time, where he can reconnect with like his old war buddies who are older now when he's still the young man. And that's something we got through a lot of his stories in Ultimates and in regular Marvel comics. That was always an interesting thing to see, like the counterpoint of where Steve Rogers might have been if he wasn't frozen in time.
Right.
What his age, what his generation would have been, which I think was always interesting.
Yeah. It's always a fun angle to see the man at a time stuff, which can be played up to varying degrees depending on who's working on him. But but I mean, you're right. Yeah, I mean, we're the clock's running out on being able to do these stories.
On those specific type of stories.
Yeah.
And it was fun seeing that like carry over into Bucky, into Winter Soldier, where like Winter Soldier gets the out of time stories, like we saw in Falcon and Winter Soldier, when somebody asks him how old he is, and he's like 106.
Right.
And they think he's joking, but no.
Yeah.
That's how old he is.
Much along the ways that we always got like Marvel Team Up and Marvel 2-in-1, I always thought that Cap was one of those characters that should have had a team up book. I just thought it was one of those things where, like, when you think about Marvel history and history in general, the things that he's seen, I just like the idea of seeing characters play off of him.
Right.
Like, you get some of those early on in, like, it's one of those things where they don't do it a whole lot. Like, Spider-Man's more like the ambassador type character to other characters.
Yeah.
Where, like, it's like a Spider-Man appearance in so-and-so's first couple, like, 6 to 12 issues, right?
Right.
Right.
But every now and then, like, I know when Iron Fist first, like, got out of basically got out of Marvel Premiere and had his own book. Like Cap just shows up out of nowhere. Maybe because John Byrne wanted to draw Captain America. I don't know.
Right.
But I just thought the idea of a Captain America team up book would have been cool.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I thought when I was just thinking about this the other day when we got the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it's the first Guardians of the Galaxy solo series, the Jim Valentino one in the early 90s. That whole first storyline is all about the search for Captain America's shield.
Okay, then it's the Guardians of the Galaxy set in the future.
Yes.
So different than what we know of now. It was like a superhero team 1,000 years in the future or something.
Yes. Yep. That's basically it. That's basically the premise. Is they're from the future. They've met like the Avengers and Ben Grimm, and they've come back and helped out with like Korvac and other stuff. And like again, there's like a team up issue with Spider-Man and Marvel team up. But I just thought the idea that it was interesting because they don't really play so much with like the legacy of the Shield. The Shield shows up in future stories. Like it'll be like it's in the background of the Maestro's like trophy room when in that Peter David story that, you know.
Oh, the Future Imperfect?
Yeah, Future Imperfect. Yeah, thank you. In Future Imperfect. And then like that was another place where it shows up. But it's not so much, and I'm sure there are places throughout the galaxy that know of Captain America. But I don't know if like alien races even have a concept of what America is. So it's always weird to me, like when Cap goes into space with the Avengers, what that means to the Kree. Like, Captain what? That was something. But I thought with like a team up book, you could explore the idea of Captain America out in other places rather than just where he is.
Right.
Yeah. You know, so it's always struck me as one of those things of like why we didn't get that. I never really understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like as you were bringing that up, it occurred to me too. I'm like, he pops up in Born Again, the Daredevil book, the Frank Miller Daredevil book, which I think a lot of people forget because a lot of people remember, you know, just sort of the setup of Karen, you know, selling off Matt's secret identity to the Kingpin and stuff. But yeah, I mean, he's there, you know, with that fight against Nuke and stuff like that in the streets. And
yeah,
sure,
yeah, and it works. It works nicely.
Yeah.
You know, he's a fun character, like as that history, like as that kind of time capsule of the Marvel universe. Like one of my favorite retcons was also in Morrison's X-Men.
Mm-hmm. Oh
when he's bringing up that it's not Weapon X, it's Weapon 10.
Yeah,
and the program's actually Weapon Plus. And then you go back and it's actually like Captain America's Weapon 1 of the same program that gave Wolverine his adamantium and stuff like that. And they actually tied Nuke into that also, which was neat. I really love that like it's all the same program.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that was cool too. Yeah. And then sort of similar like that. Isn't there the what is it? Isn't the robot that they like this the classic the Mike Zeck cover with Wolverine and Cap where Cap's like slashing his shield. And it's the two of them teaming up together, and they have to go against. I think it's Test 1, which is like a. It's kind of like a Sentinel type hunting robot that also goes after super soldiers or people in the program or something. That I think they only use once, and then Roger Stern used it again in his Avengers story with all the androids / like Jocasta and Machine Man teaming up together. I think that robot's in there too. But I thought it was a cool idea at the time, reading that annual. If we're just talking about cool Cap stories,
okay,
right. There's that time he turned into a werewolf.
It looks like the one you're talking about, Frank, is Captain America Annual number 8.
Ah, yeah.
From 1986.
Okay. That's a good one.
We got another note from our engineer who's doing a lot of lifting for us today, so thank you. But yeah, Bucky's death was retconned in Avengers 56. So this is the first time they mentioned that Bucky died trying to stop the drone.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, let's dig into really quick the Cap werewolf thing, because this is this I find at every con every time I'm going through long boxes. I always find this trait.
Mm-hmm. This one I've seen it, but I've never read the story.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I've never actually read it either, but it's like, it comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Like when I'm just talking to other people, like just out, like weirdly, like it's weirdly prevalent.
Cap wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cap Wolf
is so much so Spencer plays off of it, like when he jumps on, like quickly.
Cap Wolf is around the time, I think it's Mark Grunwald, because it's right around the time with right after all the stuff with John Walker. And then it's right after the time when Cap is one of the times that Cap is quit and he's no longer Captain America, he's the captain. It's right after all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's where he's come back. It's like I think it's 350 at that point where he basically comes back to being Captain America.
Okay.
And then right after that is when you get John Walker making the switch, or right around that time is when John Walker makes the switch to being U.S. agent.
Right.
But yeah, I can't remember what the premise was. I just remember having, like, I've read those issues, and I think I still have them someplace. But well, because it's also around the same time that you have the same similar story. Well, it's in that same run of storylines. The idea that it's like, you know, you're in the era of just say no, just say no to drugs,
right?
And the idea that the super soldier serum is a drug,
yeah.
And how can we have Captain America on drugs,
right?
So he has to, like, expunge the super soldier serum from his body,
yeah,
and then sort of has to be Captain America without it,
right?
Okay.
Yeah,
I do remember some of that arc.
Yes.
That is when I was picking it up. Lots of Serpent Society stuff around that time.
Yeah, because he was with Diamondback at the time.
Yeah, and I loved Serpent Society. So
Sure, me too.
I was into it on that. It looks like the Cap Wolf was around issues like the early 400s because it looks like it was a 6-part series around like 401 to 407.
Okay.
Issues 401 to 407. 1992, Mark Gruenwald writing. There was a chapter called Dances with Werewolves. That is part 4 of the story. So
right.
They were very on topic on pop culture trends at the time, I guess.
Yeah, it's also that's right. Now I remember. Sorry, I just looked it up real quick. The other thing is at the time was the Avengers were no longer at the mansion. They were at Hydra Base because Avengers Mansion had gotten destroyed by the Masters of Evil, and there's like that really good. It's a good arc about Roger Stern and Tom Palmer, I think, does the art. But anyway, so they're at Hydra Base, and they have a group of people there that are part of like the grounds crew. And one of them is Jameson's son, John Jameson. And if you don't know about John Jameson, other than that early on, he's astronaut and, American hero, John Jameson, he also becomes a character called Man Wolf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And that plays into the whole thing of, I'm sure that's a play for Marvel on Man Bat.
Right.
But he's got this necklace that transforms him into a wolf every now and then. And I think that plays into the whole thing with Cap becoming a werewolf at that time too.
Yeah. Well, Frank, let me tell you. So if you can't find your issues ever, I could find you the trade easy. so just let me know.
Sure,
I'll pick it up for it. Yeah,
right.
It's not a con unless I find this thing.
Gotcha.
Trust me, it's easy. All right, so we're gonna start closing out a little earlier because this is also the 10th anniversary of Captain America: The First Avenger, the movie. So we wanted to close out with enough time to sort of get into this movie as well. But first, if you like the show, you can check out all of our episodes on YouTube at letmeknowhowitis.com. Just please, however you find us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And finally, if you have any ideas for a topic, you can send it our way on Twitter or in the comments. Our Twitter handles are show's initials, LMKHII. So, all right, so let me just do credits really quickly. So Captain America: First Avenger is directed by Joe Johnston, and screenplay credits by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, I think it is.
Yes.
Who these guys have done
lots
of Marvel movies. Lots of them.
They've done a lot of MCU.
And movie stars Chris Evans as Cap, obviously, Haley Atwell, Hugo Weaving, Tommy Lee Jones, Sebastian Stan, Dominic Cooper, and Stanley Tucci. So, looking back at this movie, what do we think?
This is one that was unassuming for me of some of the early MCU stuff. It definitely wasn't as like bombastic as Iron Man 1 was. And it came out, I guess, a year before Avengers. So it had come out after Iron Man 2, and after Thor.
Wow.
And so then this was the last one of phase 1 before Avengers itself.
Right.
And I remembered liking a lot of it. And then as I've watched it over the years, I actually appreciate it more each time I watch it.
Okay.
And I most recently watched it all the way through right before Falcon and Winter Soldier started. I watched the whole trilogy of First Avenger, Winter Soldier, and Civil War to get ready for Falcon and Winter Soldier and to just, get myself in the mood for that. And like every time, like I find new stuff to appreciate about Captain America: First Avenger. For a long time, it was the first half. where I'd be like, it's a solid first half, and then maybe the second half's not as good, but now like I like it all. Like I appreciate stuff in all of it.
Right.
Yeah. I love it. I still love it. I loved it when I saw it. My only thing about it that I think is funny is the motorcycle scene. That's about the only thing that's a little funny, because it seems like it's something that belongs in a made for TV superhero movie,
right?
And or an early early 90s superhero movie.
Right, like a Gen 1 superhero movie.
Yeah, but other than that... It may be
sacrilege to say, but man, those Hydra motorcycles look awesome, though.
They do.
That's a neat design, I gotta say.
Good design work.
Sure. Oh, no, I'm not... No problem with the design. I'm just saying, it just to me, it felt a little dated. Yeah. And not in like a World War II way. Other than that, no, I love that movie. I think Winter Soldier. I think First Avenger is great.
Yeah.
I love the bit of how, there's little bits in it that I love. I love the bit like where he's running after he becomes Cap and runs into the shop.
Right.
Because he doesn't have the control.
Yeah.
I love the bit where the saboteur throws, after killing Erskine, right?
Right. Yep.
After killing Erskine, grabs the kid. And he tosses the kid in the water, and the kid's like, "I'm okay. I could swim." Like that. That's of course.
I love that part. Right. Go get him.
I get him. Yeah, that part's great. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in that movie. It's one of those. It's the shot of Steve. When they're at the World's Fair of him in the soldier's uniform, and he's like can barely get his head over the.
Oh, right, like in the mirror, so you can see yourself as a soldier.
Right.
Like attraction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even that whole thing of making him scrawny Steve Rogers is great. I mean, all that stuff is great. He's great in it. Captain America, I'm a fan of your films. That whole bit is awesome.
Yeah.
Hugo Weaving, who I wish had stuck around, but it didn't. He was great as Red Skull. I'd love to see. I hope they go with what's his name, who played him in Endgame.
I don't remember who it was.
Oh yeah, I think they will though.
I
think they will.
I mean, I've met him. I've talked to him a couple times, and I can't remember his name. That's awful. But he was on. Ross Marquand. That's it. He does impressions for you've seen him do impressions in a bunch of stuff. He does impressions for Fox when they do the sports. But he did he played the Red Skull in Endgame.
Infinity War.
Infinity War. I'm sorry. Right. Yeah, Infinity War and Endgame. And he's great. I'd love to make that they make a deal with him for him to come back as Red Skull, because I think Red Skull is a seminal character that needs to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do too.
I think the idea of that stuff unfortunately never going away. There needs to be. I'd love to see Sam stomp the crap out of Red Skull.
It'd be awesome, right?
Yeah, it'd be terrific. But Ross Marquand, I mean, just from the fact that Ross Marquand is great, and a quick story about that is, I remember he said that he was at the premiere for the first one for Infinity War, and ran into Denai Guerrero, and they know each other because they worked in The Walking Dead together. And she's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Well, I'm in this." She goes, "What do you mean you're in this?" Right. He goes, "You'll see." And that was the first time she was able to even know.
That's hilarious. That
he was even in the movie was because because of those Marvel contracts are so tight, he couldn't tell anybody that's what he was doing. So, but
that's so funny.
But yeah, I think, like I said, I think everyone, top to bottom, like Tommy Lee Jones is great in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing I was thinking rewatching it too, is I'm looking back at it, I'm like, man, this movie is stacked with people. And it's like, it is also a little combination of you got Stanley Tucci and Tommy Lee Jones and Hugo Weaving and like those guys were known. And then, Sebastian Stan and Haley Atwell, would become known for being in this, and man, let me tell you, Haley Atwell is such a lucky bit of casting for Peggy Carter, because she is wonderful.
Yeah.
And she's the heart of this movie.
No, I agree. She's great. I mean, I forgot about Stanley Tucci. I love Stanley Tucci to begin with, but he's awesome in this. But just talking about moments in it, I love the bit with the guy, the climbing the flagpole scene is awesome, because it shows Captain's not he's not just obviously at that point he's not a physical anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the Tommy Lee Jones throwing the fake grenade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great bit. There's
we were just talking about this one a little bit right before you came on. And again, we're going to cite our engineer, even though he's not on the episode.
Right.
Our engineer brought up a point of that scene where Like we've seen that scene. Tommy Lee Jones throws it's a dud, but they don't know if it's a dud.
Right.
And like most of the soldiers who are like your ideal soldiers, like the rugged men, run like for cover. And Steve Rogers jumps on it. But the other thing that people didn't notice is that I didn't notice before until I went back and looked after he told me is Peggy's also running to it. So Peggy and Steve are the ones. Steve just gets to it first, but it's those two that are running to jump on that grenade.
Yeah. No, it's a great bit.
Yeah. No, I mean she's got so many awesome moments.
Yeah.
In this movie too, and you know, and continues to have awesome moments later on in the series, and
right.
you know, but yeah, Stanley Tucci's wonderful too, and like I just love all the slow conversational, you know, like you're a good man, you know, conversations, and like and the serum amplifies what's in you, so you know, bad becomes worse and good becomes great, and you know,
which comes back later in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
It does, yeah, and so I mean, Clifton, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. Where like when I first saw this, like I like. Same exact opinion of it. I was like, the first half I think it's really, really strong, and I think it kind of loses some steam. And yeah, and I just fall in love with this movie more and more every time I see it. And I love also how much I can do this all day. Yeah. And I'm just a kid from Brooklyn stuff like keeps coming back continuously as part of his character.
Yeah, it's a through line for the character that you know, the thing I'm a kid from Brooklyn and like do this all day. And then, you know, the one that always gets me is I don't like bullies. Like that's the one, like that goes through. I'm like that informs the character throughout the entire thing, like from top to bottom to the all the way to the end. You know, provided they don't back up a dump truck full of money to his house,
right?
You know, to get him to come back.
Yeah.
The fact that there's so much stuff that's laid there. You know, I mean, I remember. You know, I wasn't so worried about Iron Man. I wasn't with Kenneth Branagh on Thor. I wasn't so worried about them pulling that off. But I will say, you know, Captain America for me was the one that I thought, man, I just don't know. I just don't know. I don't know if you can get somebody who can like, you know, who's going to, I mean, how are they going to do this without being corny or being dated or being something like, nobody really feels that way, you know, but Evans is so good and plays it so earnest and plays it so true that it just, you know, I mean, say what you will. I mean, I know, you know, especially say this on the 4th of July. I know that you know, that people obviously have issue with the country, but it's one of those things where the promise of Captain America, at least portrayed by Evans, is something that most people don't really have a problem with.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a through line in the comics too. Like Captain America, I think always represents what the country should be more so than what it is.
Right.
And I think a lot of people connect with that. And that's something that's been in comics and in movies where it's an ideal version of what we could be. And not always what we actually are.
Right.
But going back to just having, you know, what you thought about the movie before it was coming out, I do remember when I heard Joe Johnston got cast, and I'm a big fan, and you know, from our previous episode about Rocketeer. And Zag as well. Is like when I heard that that's who they'd cast to direct, I'm like, okay, it just needs to look like Rocketeer.
Yeah.
No, I know, me too. I'm like,
he's got this.
I'm like, that's pretty great.
I'm like, I can see him directing this already because I kind of did.
Yeah.
But and that's the thing. I think a lot of people, especially coming off of Ultimate's version of Captain America that was so popular in the comics at the time,
right?
People kind of wanted a Saving Private Ryan of a movie,
right?
And that's not what we got.
No,
and I think some people, maybe some people were disappointed in that, but like what we got was like, I think a really good adaptation of Golden Age Marvel.
Sure,
the New York City that they represent in the comics and they present in the movies isn't, you know, the perfect, accurate 1930s or 40s New York, but it feels like, having gone back and read a lot of Golden Age Marvel since then, like it feels like they really captured the feel of the New York City that the Golden Age comic creators saw, that the Golden Age comic creators were putting on the page. And there's a lot of details straight out of Captain America #1 that made it into the movie. Like that the fact that the experiments behind an antique shop is straight out of the comic.
Okay.
That's in the comic book. In the comic book, there's the old lady that runs the shop who's in the movie as well.
I love that bit.
In the comic, the difference is that she's she's X-13 in disguise. But they had already kind of combined X-13 with Peggy Carter, so she couldn't do both because she's the one that takes them there in the movie. But the old lady was there in the comic, like grabs a gun when she sees people walking in and then like slides it back into the drawer. That's in the comic. And then how the whole scene plays out with the experiment and then a saboteur being up in the observation room is from the comic. It does not result in a chase into the streets, but it was just like funny to me. Like there were so many little details that they did just take straight from that 1941 comic and put into this movie.
I love the design of that stuff because it's like the use of color in the film is really, really cool too, because like the stuff at home is so warm.
Yeah, it's a very sepia toned, like
very sepia tone, and it does and there is like a comfort to it, which and then you get like into the war and the stuff with Hydra. It's very desaturated and stuff and a lot of blue, and it's very cold, which is neat because it makes like Red Skull pop a little bit more also. Which I should say, like I just got to go on record. I think Red Skull looks awesome. In this movie. I really do.
The bit where he peels off his face.
Yeah.
That could have been really terrible, but it works. It works so well. It's so cool.
And Bucky's like, you don't have one of those, do you?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like awesome stuff, and Zola is in there, which we didn't bring up, which is also really fun. Like I like the Red Skull tease where like he's getting the portrait painted and you just see like all the red on the painter's palette and stuff like that. It's so well shot, that stuff. I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
And Sebastian Stan, like that's the other thing. Like he's the big addition. The big different thing between the comics and the movies is how they portray Bucky as a peer to Steve Rogers and actually more of like a big brother to Steve Rogers, because he's the one always looking out for Steve Rogers. He's the one keeping the bullies away from Steve Rogers when Steve Rogers isn't just fighting them until he can't stand anymore, which we also see happen. But so that was a different play. But like I just can't believe like Sebastian Stan, who came from nowhere, he's the one that's still with us. Like Chris Evans isn't still in these projects.
Yeah.
Right.
And Sebastian Stan, who we didn't know from anything when these things started, is the one carrying with Anthony Mackie. They're the one carrying a show.
He was like the jerk in Hot Tub Time Machine. And I'm like, that's the guy that's going to be Bucky? Okay.
Right.
Like, and he had such a Johnny from Karate Kid like feel to him in that movie. That's literally the only thing I'd ever seen him in.
Right.
Before that, But I like that. I like that role reversal. It's cool. Like when Peggy comes into the bar and like all the Howling Commandos are there and they're getting ready to go on the mission and like Bucky's hitting on her.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's having none of it. And he's like, what, am I invisible? I'm turning into you.
Yeah.
Like, I love that bit. Like,
it's a good bit.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much about this movie that I've really, really come to love. And another like stupid small thing about it that I love, but I love that he doesn't have makeup under the mask, which I don't mind. I really don't care about the eye makeup in the Batman movies and stuff like that.
Right.
Like I get the need for it and everything, but it's neat to see like just the practicality of it. Just like, no, he's just putting it on and there's his eyes and it works.
It's just a guy with a mask. Yeah.
Yeah. No, good stuff.
But it is crazy. It is crazy to think how much more MCU has come after that one. Like that's still in the early days of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing that gets me too is looking back at it, and a lot of the early Bucky stuff was teasing a little bit the visual of him with the shield,
right?
Because that's a thing in Brubaker's run,
right?
Like something happens to Steve,
right?
And Bucky takes over for a little while, and he's Captain America.
Yeah,
and
you get Bucky Cap,
and it looks like they're very much aware of that because there's that bit where he uses the shield on the train right before he gets, blowed out of it, right?
Right.
And then by the time Endgame comes along, we get the Sam Wilson stuff as Cap in the books, which I like a lot,
right?
And it was also, I think, for fans a little bit like, well, like which way are we going to go?
Yeah.
Like, is because I think we all knew at some point Chris Evans was going to leave,
right?
But and then you watch Falcon Winter Soldier, and I think it's done nicely.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. I think they did the right choice because man, I'm just like, I can't wait for the next Avengers group shot with Sam Wilson there front and center, and that, because I love that new cap suit. Man, I love that cap suit.
I watched the dedication or the premiere, whatever it was, for the Avengers campus at Disney World. And as part of that, Anthony Mackie comes out as part of that online presentation they did and presents the shield to the Disney World version of his Captain America.
Cool.
And like, it was actually kind of moving, where I'm like, this is the real Captain America now. Like, he's the one at Disney World. Like, it's this Captain America. It's the Sam Wilson Captain America. Like, it's definitely, like, it means something. Like, I like that.
That's
It's cool to see.
Yeah, and also, like, every time I see more of him, like in interviews and stuff like that, like, I'm like, man, I think he's awesome. I just think he's so great. And I can't wait. Like, I so can't wait till Winter Soldier, the movie, is 10 years old, so we could talk about that one also. Because I mean, like, he's got some fantastic scenes in that movie, and there's no bad scene with Sam Wilson, in my opinion. Like, I love all of it, because in the comics there's a bit of like a sidekicky aspect to it.
Sure.
And I like that they're just like, I mean, they're friends in the books too, which I do like, and you see that in the Secret Empire stuff. Like, they are close, but I think that's the chemistry of the actors, like, really comes through on screen.
Yeah. I do suspect that when it all started, they were probably eyeing Sebastian Stan's Bucky, because that's what was happening in the comics right around that time. Was the Winter Soldier, that Bucky had become Captain America. And then the Sam Wilson Captain America comics hadn't come out yet, not for another 5 years or 4 years or so. And so then they just kind of changed their plans along the way, which I think is interesting.
Right. Yeah. But I still like that they still tease it, though. Because there's that fight with Iron Man at the end of Civil War.
Right. Because it always could have gone either way. Because now, like, they're both stories we know.
Right, where he and Cap are trading the shield back and forth to each other while they're like just stomping the crap out of Tony.
Right.
Like, I like that stuff too. Like, I like that they still show that he has like a certain like proficiency with it.
Right.
Sure.
But yeah, I guess really quick, but before we start closing out though, too, we should talk about maybe Dominic Cooper a little bit, because we get to see young Howard Stark.
Right.
Which we had seen Howard in Iron Man 2, right? When you get kind of like
a flash,
the old like Walt Disney like video stuff. But I just like he's so awesome as sort of like Tony version 1.
Yeah. Yep.
He is very good, and you do get to see more of it if you watch the Agent Carter show. Yeah, both seasons are currently on Disney Plus, I believe.
Worth it.
Yeah, I love the Agent Carter series. Both seasons I loved quite a bit. So you definitely get more of him. You get more of her, which is fantastic. And yeah, I like the friendship where they do like the scenes he has with Steve Rogers in First Avenger. I like where you come into the scene where he's like, fondue is just cheese and bread, my friend. after Steve Rogers' confusion about what fondue means.
Yeah.
Like, I love their little friendship there.
No, I do too. It's great stuff too. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, just to keep stressing it, because I think Haley Atwell's so awesome in this movie, but it just seems also like, that like any opportunity they got to work her in somewhere in the following movies, they took it.
Yeah,
sure.
All the way to Endgame.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely argue that she's a through line through all of it.
Yeah, and I think that they sort of like found their way with it, because I mean they were sort of I think dipping their toes a little bit in the idea of him and Sharon together, which understandably, like that's the thing from the comics.
Right.
Is that's very much a romance for a long time.
Yep.
Yeah. But I just think I like that the producers, I think, when they're like, man, like we're kind of onto something here. Like these actors have great chemistry, which is like really, I mean, that's the thing to say about this movie, I think, is that they all like everybody's really good with each other in this.
Yeah, it is, at the end of the day, they decided, like Steve and Peggy, they're the one. Like they're the one for each other. So that's what we're gonna get. And I think that was the right call.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a sweetness to it I like when you see it, like you guys said, like the through line all the way to Endgame and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. And Chris Evans is just still so good. Like Frank, like you were saying, like, it's you're still hoping that you'll find a way to get him in there somewhere, right? To have some kind of a presence.
Yep.
Even as spoiler alert, even as old man Steve.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which I think I have the solution for it, I think. But, I think that they've already gone for another way. But, I know Chris Evans has been wanting to get more into directing, and I'm just like, give him Cap 4.
Yeah.
I'm like, let him direct Cap 4. I think that would be neat.
Right.
Where I would assume that Steve Rogers would be looming as a plot thread throughout the story anyway.
True.
Right? I'm like, who better than to have the guy who played him maybe, directing that movie so he's there.
Right.
My suggestion, but I think they've already found their Helmer.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, it's an awesome movie. Looking back, can't believe it's 10 years old though.
Yeah.
Man,
time flies.
So
time
old.
isn't real.
Makes me feel so old that Chris Evans has not aged a day.
No.
I feel like. So yeah. So, all right, listeners, hit us up on Twitter or in the comments. Let us know about Captain America, your thoughts, your memories with the character, or your thoughts of the movie. As always, we'll post links and examples to everything we talk about on letmeknowhowitis.com. Please don't forget to like us and follow us on social media. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.